Hello, this is Genevieve Fontana coming to you from Canisius University in Buffalo, New York, and you are listening to the Did You Know podcast. You might not know it, but we have eco-heroines around our campus working to make it sustainable for future generations. For each show, I will spotlight earth-friendly initiatives and sit down with the changemakers of our institution. Today we are spotlighting Dr. Jenn LodiSmith, Professor of Psychology. Thank you so much for speaking with me today.
Thank you. I'm so glad we're getting to do this. This is great.
So would you be able to introduce yourself and explain a little bit about what you do at Canisius?
Yeah, so I'm Jenn LodiSmith, and I am currently in my last week as Assistant Vice President for Academic Affairs in support of faculty development and the student experience, which is a big long title. That means I get to, I've spent the past 4.5 years supporting things like our Canisius Earning Excellence program, where our faculty and students get to do collaborative scholarship, our faculty scholarship in general, and in particular new initiatives that might come up and move those forward, like Lodi-Smith, which I've gotten to lead the past couple of years, and so I'll be transitioning that all over to Yvonne Widener, who will be coming in as the new AVPAA in the new year, and who you've already interviewed on this in your first episode. So that's sort of in a nutshell what I've been doing with half of my time. But the other part of my life is as a professor of the psych department, where I study how people become who they are. I teach about that in classes like personality psychology, psych of aging, lifespan development. I really like to combine people's stories with quantitative explorations of people over time. And so I look at the like individual story combined with, and how does 60 years of long-term longitudinal data tell us about personality change? Where do those two meet? Where can we learn new things to study in the data from the stories, and vice versa?
That's so interesting.
It's a lot of fun.
And the SEAT project, my SEAT project, is inspired by your work. And
this is it.
Yeah,
we are doing SEAP right now.
Yeah, we are doing
really
SEAP right now.
SEAP is, I really think, one of our one of the most amazing things we do here at Canisius. It's really, I think other institutions have some mechanisms for doing that, but the way that we do it and the way that we celebrate it at Ignatian Scholarship Day was one of the things that attracted me here 13 years ago when I was first learning about Canisius. And I love that there's the opportunity for faculty and students to work together, students bringing ideas that they have, faculty saying, here's a project that I need help with, and seeing where that goes over the course of a year or multiple years. And it gives students experiences that are like what grad students would do at a big R1 university like the one down the road, and instead they get those experiences here in undergrad, which is so valuable. And then faculty really benefit because they're able to get support in their work, or maybe start doing something new. And for me, I think this sustainability work is really sort of new and has been driven by student interests and my family's own interests. So it's really exciting to see where the students take us in our work.
Yeah, and like the range of expertise here at Canisius. So it's amazing to just see how everything's put together.
And being able to do things collaboratively with your colleagues, because maybe a student has taken a class with this cool person over here who you don't really know all that well, but they bring you together. And
definitely, great. Yeah. And I know you're very active in Lodi-Smith. Would you be able to tell me a little bit about the initiative and our future plans for the organization?
Yeah, so I feel like I came into Lodi-Smith not because of particular expertise in sustainability. I really very much feel like I am still learning. I'm still coming to understand. We have expertise in our faculty and our students, like you, that is far deeper and far richer than what I bring to the table, beyond just my own learning and understanding and values. I think for me, it's a lot of our values. I came into the Lodi-Smith leadership role these past couple of years because we needed someone who really cared about the way that the Jesuit phrase of caring for our common home really resonates with me. And we needed somebody who cared about that in sort of a personal value level, who also could sort of move things forward. And in grad school, I was known as the closer. You needed a paper that it was mostly done, but it needed to get out the door. You sent it to Jenn, and Jenn would get it out the door, so I was the closer. And we sort of needed someone to come and move us forward in our planning process, because we have so many wonderful people who have been working for sustainability for so long on this campus, who are, like so many folks on this campus, divided across many, many, many different responsibilities. And so one of the really great things about this role as Assistant Vice President of Academic Affairs is that there's sort of a list of responsibilities, but then there's also this, I think it's like number 8 on the duties. Duties is otherwise assigned. And that gives that flexibility that here is something that we need to put a little bit extra to as an institution, and we can direct the AVPAA towards that. And so I was pointed to and asked for a Laudato Si, and what we've really been able to do these past couple of years is taking some of those things that I do in my academic life of listening and thinking about where we want to go, taking our lessons from Laudato Si of the actions and the goal areas, the priorities for Laudato Si, and how can we as an institution work towards caring for our common home. Tried a couple of different approaches to that before we hit on really what worked for our community, so that we could develop an action plan. And so now we have our 3-year action plan, which you developed a beautiful version of, and we've shared out with the community now. So we have 2 really main priorities. One is around ensuring that we're creating a nature-friendly campus, and 2, reducing resource use, right? And so reducing our plastics in particular is a real interest on campus. Fossil fuels, paper, other food resources. Our partners in Chartwells are doing amazing things, and you're helping them as their Chartwells intern for sustainability there. And so we've, I feel like a lot of what Laudato Si is doing is showcasing the great work that we're already doing, and then helping us think about where we want to go to next, and then engaging new folks to join in. And so I think really what's coming for the springtime will be conversations with different offices. So for example, in January, we are going to sit down with human resources and pilot with them this process that's very Jesuit. It's like, all right, what are y'all already doing? Maybe they're not printing anything. I don't know. What are you already doing, right? That's great. What might be some low-hanging fruit that you can adjust quickly and nimbly, and then what are the things that maybe are longer term, or maybe they're things where, okay, we need to print because of this thing, and this thing have to be printed. Right. Legal reasons or practical reasons within the office. So where can we sort of give ourselves the credit, right? Sustainability credit, so that we can do that, but we won't do this. And think about that balance. And so what we'll really be doing over the coming months is having guided conversations with different offices around campus to have them think and see new ideas that maybe we as like the Laudato Si committee might not see for them, and then bring that back into our action plan, and then we'll have continued work on our garden spaces, working hopefully with community partners in a lot of different ways in our community gardens, and becoming a more bird-friendly campus, and working to reduce our food waste. So I think there'll be a lot of movement coming forward, which is exciting.
And one of my favorite parts of Laudato Si is you would think that it's just faculty in the sciences, but it's everyone.
Oh, yeah.
And everyone has a different expertise or something to bring to the table, and that's so exciting. Like you said, different perspectives and things that they can do in their life. And I think that makes it so much more applicable, and it doesn't seem like it's so daunting.
Yeah. I think another really exciting thing that's going to be coming out soon, we have, for a number of years now, we've had our Engaged Scholarship Recognition Initiative, where we have wanted to really share and showcase the ways that our scholarship or seat things, our Ignatian Scholarship Day presentations, these sorts of projects are engaging with priority areas, right? So diversity and inclusion, sustainability, being with our community partners, things like that. And then doing that, that was one of the things that was a final conversation before shutdown for the pandemic.
Right.
So we've been doing that for a while now. And we are going to be updating some of the language in that. And then we're also going to be bringing that to pedagogy and saying, what are the ways that your classrooms, that your teaching is engaged with these priority areas? Because, you know, we can capture like a diversity attribute in the core, right? But that's not capturing all of the different ways that all of our classrooms in so many ways are engaging with diversity or sustainability. And so asking faculty to self-identify, but also students to raise up. Here's a class that I see maybe we never would think about doing sustainability work that's
Right.
doing really amazing sustainability work.
Yeah.
And we don't have sustainability in the core. And so this is a really nice way to be able to capture that and see that. So I'm really excited about that. I don't know that that'll come together and be launched before I leave as AVP, but I think it's a really exciting thing that'll be coming for the future. For not just Lodi-C, but many areas of the way that we do mission at the university.
And some of my favorite things have been to see how professors have been creative in incorporating that in their curriculum. Like I remember Michael Gavin, he did like a unit in his business class about during Earth Week about how, you know, your dollar is so important and stuff like that. Something that you just wouldn't think of in a business course talking about environmental sustainability, and that has been one of my favorite
And there's
stories.
so many cool things that faculty are doing that maybe we're not seeing. And then there's other spots where a faculty member might think, I hadn't thought about it like that. I could do something like that. That would be really cool. And so sort of also creating innovation and both within scholarship and within pedagogy, I think is something that's really exciting for where we are right now. Yeah.
So changing gears a little bit. So why do birds matter?
I love birds, you know this. I'm a huge bird nerd, and that's really been a relatively recent development in my life because of my kids. And I think I'm watching some little chickadees fly across right now. I think birds matter because, to me personally, because of my kids. And I think birds matter at a broad scale because of kids, because we want to leave the world for the next generation and all the generations that come after that. And we want to have our own species here to be able to interact with birds. And birds are, you know, they're charismatic and they're interesting. They're a gateway to caring about sustainability for a lot of people. You know, we you might see them in our backyard, and that might make us then see them in other places around us, out our windows, which is why we shouldn't point ourselves towards windows when we're working.
Yeah, right.
And then we learn about the deep ecology and the connection to caring for our common home, and that then will help people want to think about those individual ways that they spend their money, the individual choices that they make in their food and their daily behaviors of, you know, how long a shower they're taking, because all of those things, as I learn more and more and more about ecology, all of those things matter so much. And birds are often seem to be sort of a gateway for that, and a lens on how we're doing. And unfortunately, the lens on how we're doing is not great. And that's, you know, I think that's really sad that when we think of the loss of birds, we also see that translate to the loss of broader biodiversity, and this beautiful home that's evolved to exist for us. And we're not, to bring it back to Laudato Si, we're not taking care of it. We're not, we're not keeping the trust that we have for this space, and that's going to have consequences. And that consequence may not be for the birds. The birds are going to evolve and survive past us. I'm not so sure our species, but certainly I hope that we listen to the birds and to their ecology, and we slow down and we learn to take better care. Because if we don't, we may not be here to appreciate them as a species.
Definitely. And I just want to highlight what a great job you do with the upbringing of your kids.
Oh, I love
making
my kids.
it and just fostering just such a nature-rich life. So
they do so much of that. That is really they've led us and our I wouldn't even say just in our household, in our whole extended family. Their passion.
It's contagious.
Oh yeah, it's wonderful. They give me so much hope, and their friends and their community. And I think we also see Laudato Si from a recruitment standpoint for admissions. We see if one of the priority areas of the sort of Jesuit and Catholic faith is journeying with the youth. That's where the youth are leading us. Mm-hmm. They care about the earth, and they care about creating a better world. And I do think that we've made progress since the 40s. We've made progress since the 50s and the 60s. And we've done that in intentional, meaningful ways. We've also seen a lot of losses, but they're stories of hope. And that sort of intergenerational building of, me bringing recycling into our home when I was a kid, and then the changes that my kiddos are making, and that gives me hope for growth.
Definitely, yeah. So a spark bird is a term used by the birding community for the bird that hooks someone into their passion for birding. What is your spark bird story?
I do not have a bird. I have a person, and the person is my Maisie bird. Mm-hmm. So my daughter Maisie is now 10. When she became old enough to really be able to clearly communicate what her interests were, it was birds. And we can look back and be like, oh yeah, and the favorite stuffy and the favorite books, and when we were out on walks, before when she was pre-verbal, it was birds. And that happened because Maisie's older sibling Sam loved nature and had sort of discovered themselves in nature, and early on sort of became who they are when they were outside, and then had all of these great opportunities to learn more and discover more about nature. So we were out in nature a lot, and so Maisie knew birds forever, and had this passion for them. And conveniently, I, at least for the next 4 days, work in the office next door to Dr. Sarah Morris, who's our vice president for academic affairs, but is also a world famous, amazing ornithologist, and has been studying birds for decades. And she really said, here are the things that you can do to support this young woman in a journey to become an ornithologist, which is amazing, right? If you think about creating STEM career opportunities, having that mentorship, that intergenerational mentorship was just I'm not super woo-woo, but it makes me a little woo-woo that I had this bird nerd in my house, and I had this ornithologist resource next door, and it really just all sort of coming together. And that then created opportunities for going to programs with community partners, and then getting a pair of binoculars under the Christmas tree that was our family binocular that very, very quickly was okay, we need a pair for everybody, and these aren't good enough, and we need to upgrade. And so everybody got their own. And from there, it was really, for my own personal journey, there was a moment when we were out And I was walking along a trail, I think we were at like Beaver Meadow, and I realized that my Fabletologist did their thesis defense on inner speech. My inner speech was quiet, and I wasn't doing what my default network is often doing, which is like having a conversation with somebody about something that needs to happen, or thinking about the next grant, or thinking about that like new thing that happened the other day. Instead, it was focused on what was around me. It was paying attention to the sounds of the birds. It was paying attention to the trees and the movement of the leaves, and I was just there in the space, and that was phenomenal. I was like, whoa, wow. This is awesome. And I very concretely remember that that transformative moment of thinking, I really, really need more moments like this. And then going out and creating them all the time, creating them for me by myself, visiting with some favorite owls that I love to visit with, particularly during, I think I told you when we were setting up last weekend was the anniversary of my dad's death, so particularly moving through grief, and that has all sort of come together to go full circle to then supporting the kiddos and getting us more out in nature and getting the family out in nature broadly, and go and travel and all over to do bird stuff. So, but it really resides in that individual of Maisie sort of being the initial spark, and then that transformative moment for me personally of having awareness of appreciation of the world in a new way.
Yeah, it's such like an inner peace.
Yeah.
And I know Maisie's had great opportunities to do research with Dr. Morris.
Yeah,
so
absolutely.
Really awesome.
So I don't know, have you gotten to interview Dr. Morris yet?
I did last week.
Great.
Last week I interviewed her.
And so she runs this field station on the Isle of Shoals and on Appledore Island, where she'll be going soon as the executive director. I'm so excited for her new opportunity and the difference she's going to make there. Yes, we got to spend a week there, 15-hour days. Some days Maisie slept in a little bit, but the opportunity for 15-hour days of bird banding, and Maisie is kind of like Seep. Maisie has gotten to have opportunities alongside graduate students that, like, she's 10. Right. And she's got to do these amazing things, and she, with these amazing mentors who really make sure that she is, one of her mentors up at Braddock Bay Bird Observatory, which is just down the road in Rochester, so a lot easier to get to than Maine. We go there once a week or so during seasons, and she just really makes sure that the bird safety comes first, the people's safety comes first, and that we are learning like the good science of best practices of how to do this well. And so she's getting those opportunities, and I get to learn right alongside her, which is so great. It's really nice.
So is sustainability an active conversation in the field you study?
In the field I study? God, no. I had the opportunity to talk with a graduate student at Northwestern last week who, it's like me and her in the U.S. I think she's doing a lot, her mentor as well. There aren't a ton of people in the U.S. Looking in identity development and personality spaces and sustainability. There is more in the UK and Europe around sort of sustainable behaviors and who's engaging in sustainable behaviors. I think where I'm hoping, sort of as I leave the administrative role and have more time for research, a lot of what I'm hoping to work towards is understanding these transformational experiences, and the ways that people change over time, and really bringing that to bear on when and how sustainability becomes part of our identity and how we feel that as a passion. And I'm curious about passions in general, right? Like, we know a lot about how relationships and work define people's identities. A little bit about more about volunteering and things like that. But just sort of our hobbies, our birds, sort of the spark for that, of course. But more generally, how the things that are, I guess, extracurriculars become a part of who we are and define us. But particularly for me, that really wanting to keeping that focus on sustainability and nature and how that fits into, descriptively, how that has happened for people who are there, but with the lens of, okay, how can we bring more people in? How can we create those transformative moments to help people care? Because there are people who don't, and that still sort of boggles my mind.
Right.
But how can we create those transformative moments to help people care more?
And I think you're a perfect example of someone who's not directly in the sustainability field, but
Right.
can think of, very unique ways in order to incorporate it into your work.
Oh, and I struggled for years. It's like, how am I gonna fit this? How am I gonna fit this? How am I gonna be able to benefit this community that means so much? And then we heard about the term spark bird on a different island off the coast of Maine, at Hog Island Audubon Camp, where we went for family bird camp. It was amazing. And that was because to go back to what I said in the introduction, it is a way to pair individual stories of real lived experience with sort of a data-driven approach to how people engage with birds and what the benefits are of birding for people. Because we know there's sort of you'll see every once in a while a headline of, the benefits of birding, and there's a little bit of data out there, but we need more. And we need to really move forward the science of, when we think about the ecology of birds, we know so much about the birds and how they fit in the ecosystem, but we don't really understand our place in their ecosystem.
And I think that the spark bird stories are so important because so many people are connected to a personal story instead of, numbers or data or something, so it makes it relatable to their lives and creates that connection. So that's really exciting. So I know you're working very closely with Dr. McNally on a project. Would you be able to explain the project and how you are bonded as both friends and colleagues through sustainability?
Yeah, Professor McNally is one of my people who, in the hard times and the good times and all the things in between. We are working on a podcast of our own, called the Sparkbird Podcast, which is part of this larger Sparkbird project of studying the stories that bring people into birding. And the idea for the podcast is to share those stories. And Professor McNally is going to bring her expertise as a creative writer, as a poet, because birds are such an important component of story in so many ways. When we think of nonfiction or of fiction rather than nonfiction, and then people are themselves creating their stories, and we are, to borrow the title of the book, we are storytelling creatures, and we are, most of us, at least, not everybody, but most of us are constantly creating our own stories. And so we're going to interweave that story from sort of the psychological perspective and story from the creative writing perspective, and put those together, talk about the stories themselves, talk about the themes, interview folks, and talk about the ways that birds and stories connect in sort of an interdisciplinary space. And hopefully from there, one of our earliest participants in the Sparkbird project floated the idea of a book of a collection of Sparkbird stories.
Really cool,
so that would be lovely. A lot of people are sparked by field guides of being able to see birds in books, so being able to have something sort of in parallel of a field guide to the birders and their stories would be really lovely. So
wonderful.
We'll see where it goes. That's one of the nice things about being sort of along in my career and settled in my career and here at Canisius is that I don't feel any huge urgency, but also get to do these things that I care about because they're important and fun and passion areas that I hope can make a difference.
I'm looking forward to your podcast.
Yeah,
it'll be so exciting.
It'll be a lot of fun. Hopefully we'll be recording any day now. We've had some bumps, but we'll be getting there. So.
Yeah. Well, it's going to be wonderful. I know it. And so, what are some ways in which you make earth-friendly choices in your life?
I really try to do that with every. This is very rare that I have the lights on in my office, and every small action that I take, I rarely, if ever, print. When I do print, double-sided and all of those things, of course, but it has to be really intentional that I'm printing. I never use single-use plastic bottles. I have my reusables, and I openly will shame people for the choices I'm becoming as I become closer and closer to midlife demographically, and I'm quite settled into it behaviorally. I have no problem with suggesting that maybe we do something else with our money and our resources. When we do sort of get a single-use plastic water bottle in an event, it gets stuffed under the front seat of the car for emergency water if we're ever someplace that doesn't have water and we run out. For my own eating, I eat a primarily vegetarian diet. The kids have not yet, so we had a turkey at Christmas, and so I had some turkey, and then we were like, why are we having turkey? It's like none of us favorite. Maybe we'll just not do it next year and just do the sides. Okay, but we still want bacon.
The important things.
But they're old enough now that I can at least sort of make some of my own food choices. Try to think. Like turning off the water when I brush my teeth. Somebody said that in one of your interviews, and I was like, people leave the water on? Oh, I remember talking to my mom about that when I was a little kid.
So funny.
Right? Like, there's some things that are so ingrained. When Sam was probably about 5 or 6, we helped do some survey work. They were very passionate about this. That we just had like the recycled totes that you had to carry, and the wind would blow everybody's recycling all over the neighborhood. It was awful. So we helped our neighborhood get the little rolly bins, and we make, somebody else on your podcast said this, like we make more recycling than we do garbage, easily. So lots of recycling, thinking about reuse of things. We use our wrapping paper this time of year.
Definitely,
our poor beaten up boxes and bags. Just small things that we can do. We have solar in the house. We have one of our vehicles is electric. The other one I inherited from my dad, and so it's sort of like, it's we actually call it, based on some literature we saw at Rhinestone Woods one day. We call the gas car the unsustainable past. It's like the name of the car. It's the unsustainable past.
So
but we still drive the unsustainable past because, we're going to drive it until it literally can't do anything more. And then it will get sold to be scraps and, do something useful. Whereas if we sold it now, somebody might not make as sustainable choices, and we can make choices about how we're using it. So things like that, and then and I realize I'm intentionally going through this, or unintentionally going through this in our priority areas for Lodi-Smith, which is funny. It's organizing my own thinking.
Well, that's so helpful.
It is.
Everyone should look at the list. We
only put in native plants, mostly purchased from one of our faculty here on campus.
That's awesome.
Runs a native plant farm, which is amazing, and is definitely worth a visit. CW plants, and we are working on removing invasives around the house, and then most importantly is the birds, and so working in our community. And hopefully being able to do more in our community as I move out of this administrative role to advocate for things like bird-friendly windows and other ways that we can be a bird-friendly community, getting technology to help track bird migration as part of community efforts, things like that. I think one of the lessons that we're really learning from Sparkbird project is the importance of field guides, the importance of binoculars, and the importance of community and people. Mm-hmm. And so working to create more opportunities to get more people exposed to those is really also just how I spend my time resources. I'm making sure I can only do so much, but that I put that energy and effort where I can.
And then what's your vision for sustainability on our campus?
On our campus, oh boy, I went to go visit Loyola Chicago in October, I think I told you, and they had green roofs, so all of their campus buildings, I think they said it was all, I'm going to go with all because I love that idea, all of their roofs were green. Many of them had gardens. Their gym had a garden bed in the shape of their mascot. So if you were flying overhead, like imagine flying over the CAC and seeing like Petey.
Yeah.
And a garden. Like how amazing would that be, right? And like we're
speaking it out there so it happens.
Right next to Forest Lawn, which is like a major stopover point for bird migration. And so we need to be mindful of that in our space. So, you know, the green roof gardens are like the dream. I don't know if it's practical or ever could actually happen, but what a neat idea. I think we're doing great things with our native plant gardens and with our community gardens. You know, a lot of this takes resources and infrastructure change. And I think as we have the opportunity to update buildings and facilities, we're getting better and better at being mindful about how we're doing that. Yeah. And so I think as changes, as updates happen, small things like changing our LED lights and creating that momentum and keeping that moving forward, I think will be really important.
Definitely.
I would also love to see us have a sustainability officer on campus.
Too. You know, that was my next question.
One of mine. It was actually the very first recommendation. We had an outside consultant do a sustainability plan for us that was released in January of 2020. And of course, you know, then the pandemic happened, but that was their first recommendation, was hire a sustainability officer who, like Ms. Fatima does for our diversity work, can oversee and really facilitate and deliver to ensure with, you know, a broad lens that we are thinking in sustainability-minded ways, just as Ms. Fatima helps us and reminds us, along with so many amazing people, to think in equity-minded ways. And I think that could really go a long way to helping our campus stay on the forward momentum that it has.
Definitely. So that was going to be my next question. My next question was, what are some ways that Canisius can help us make these changes?
I think from the faculty perspective, one of the best ways to get faculty to think about what they're doing differently is to make it part of our evaluative process. So thinking about like these structural moments to check in. So getting people to think about how is your pedagogy engaged with our mission. That is around equity and access, that is around caring for our common home, that is around connecting with our community partners. So right now the College of Arts and Sciences is really encouraging faculty in their annual reports to think about and write about how your work is connected, how your teaching, how your scholarship is connected. Those are the sorts of things that are going to make people pause and think about, okay, you know, I cannot print, or I can, but we also have to show them what those behavioral options are. Right. And so that's one of the things that would Laudato-Si can provide, while the institution provides these lenses for reflection. And then here are some ways that you can.
Definitely, yeah.
Yeah, and so I think for me personally, as an individual faculty member, what could the institution provide? Time resources for writing grants is always critical, and that's one of the directions that I hope to be taking in the next few months. But also encouragement to do some wacky ideas. So, for example, in January, I'm taking a group of students to the Everglades. And this is in collaboration with a wonderful faculty member, adjunct faculty member in environmental studies, who's been a mentor to my kiddos and become a good friend. So we're going to take a group of students and we're going to be exploring the ecology of the Everglades, coming back, learning about the ecology of buffalo, and the whole time giving students these transformative opportunities to think about their place in ecology. And so I think that's the kind of thing that the institution is doing really well, is saying, okay, here's this creative idea, let's go see how that works out. You know, we put together a proposal, we put together a plan and a budget, and the college said, okay, we're gonna let you try. And that's really awesome. And so I think they need to keep doing things like that, keep SEEP funding, keep ISD going, all of these wonderful things that we're doing, sustain those, maintain those, and then look at when people do have new ideas, how we can support them and get them moving forward on them.
Great. I want to thank you so much for speaking with me today.
It's been so much. I'm so glad we finally got to do this.
Do you have anything that you'd like to add before we close?
I think the main thing I want to add is incredible appreciation for you in particular, and all of the work and energy and effort that you have given to our campus. I don't think that our campus would be where it is right now without you. And huge appreciation to the other folks on campus who are doing this work, and so I think of Sue Margulis and Katie Costanzo, and oh my gosh, I'm going to list people and I'm going to not say everybody on the Laudato-Si team, but Erin Robinson and Kathy Catrino and Melanie Suchek and all of our Chartwell's folks. There are so many people who have been doing so much. Josh Russell has written at least one, if not more, grants for our community gardens, and there's been so much work that I've been privileged to just be able to come into and learn alongside and try to support. And so I just have huge appreciation and admiration for the work that is going on and has been going on for so long, and I'm really grateful to now be considered part of that, and hopefully be able to support that in new ways.
Thank you for all the work that you do.
Anything I can. I wish I can do more. But
you only have a limited time.
There's so much time to services.